Hi, and welcome to What's Up. I'm your host, Sharon Denakaran, and we have an exciting show for you tonight. As you know, we here at What's Up always keep you on top of all the exciting and upcoming movie projects before they hit the silver screen. Today, we're going to look into the feature film, Jessie and Naomi, a romantic comedy which is not only good for a laugh, but it's also good for the soul. We hear it features a few big-name celebrities. But enough from me. When we return, we're going to hear from the creators themselves. Stay tuned. Welcome back to What's Up. If you weren't with us earlier, we're talking about the upcoming film, Jessie and Naomi. And here with me in the studio is Sean Gaffney, the writer of the film, and also a full-time professor at Regent University. Welcome, Sean. It's good to have you.
Thank you, Sharon. It's very good to be here.
So, I'm just going to ask you about Jessie and Naomi, but first, what made you want to be a writer?
Oh, wow. I've always been a storyteller, ever since I was a kid. My family couldn't shut me up. I was actually, my sister Patty and we would walk everywhere together, and she called me her walking radio. Oh, wow. Because I was always either singing or telling stories to her. And the one agreement we had is that she could always change the channel. So if she didn't like what I was singing, click. Didn't like the story I was telling, click, and I'd have to come up with something else. Wow. But yeah, always telling stories.
Always wanting to be a writer.
Yeah, to be honest, at first I wanted to be a lawyer. That was my drive from third grade on, was to be a lawyer up until college, and then I fell in love with theater. And so I started acting and then became a manager, became a producer of theater. The whole time I was writing, I was telling stories. It just never occurred to me that I could make a living doing that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was managing a theater company in Seattle, Taproot Theater, when I started writing plays and became a professional writer. But it was actually very late.
Wow, that's awesome. So do you find yourself as a comedy writer or a dramatic writer?
A little bit of both. I've never really specialized. So I'm constantly coming up with stories that are both comedies or drama. I'm kind of known even in the dramas I write for having dramas that have funny lines in it, that have funny characters in it. So yeah, it's a little bit of both.
So you wrote Jessie and Naomi.
Yes.
What was the inspiration for it?
Wow, the idea actually goes all the way back to a class I was teaching at another university.
Wow.
I was teaching a class in adaptation, and all the students had to come up with an idea for the adaptation. And one of my students came up with the idea of, what if we took the book of Ruth from the Old Testament and made it a modern day comedy?
Yeah.
And I love the idea. His name is Ryan Swindoll. We talked about the idea for a little bit, and then the very next class he came in and he said, you know what, this is a little bit more, a bit off more than I could chew.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just do an adaptation of it in regular time.
That's right, because Ruth is more of a serious character. And
absolutely.
From that to, like bring comedy, make it funny, that would have been a challenge.
I mean, Ruth starts out, Naomi is her mother-in-law, has moved to a foreign land. Her husband dies, her two sons die. She actually, when she decides to come back to Bethlehem and her daughter-in-law follows her, her friends greet her and say, "Oh, it's so great to see you." And she says, "Don't call me Ruth. Call me Mara," which means bitterness, because I'm just bitter. Life has been ruined. God has not done anything for me, and it's like, oh yeah, that's a very funny character.
Oh no, it's not.
Maybe not.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
so what obstacles did you run into when you were writing the script?
Well, that was part of it, was trying to stay true to the themes, because I really, for the original draft, it's changed a lot since then. Yeah. But originally I really wanted to see, could I make a comedy and still keep the same themes of that Ruth and Naomi story? Yeah. So trying to, like, how do I modernize it? How do I make it fresh for a modern audience? It's a very cultural story. Yeah. And I'm putting it in America thousands of years later, so completely different culture. So a lot of it was, okay, how do I find the equals without losing too much, without getting away from the story too much?
Wow, that's great. Well, we're having a wonderful conversation with Sean Gaffney. We're also going to be meeting the executive producer of the film when we come back, so stay tuned. Welcome back. We left the show talking to Sean Gaffney, writer of the upcoming movie Jessie and Naomi. So, Sean, when the script was first picked up, what were your thoughts?
when I first found out that it was going to be picked up, I'd written it several years ago and shopped it around, and there's a lot of people liked it, a lot of people really loved it. It was a question of how do we market it, because it's got a lot of religious themes in it, but it's not a religious movie. It's got a lot of secular stuff in it, but it's not a secular movie. So how do we market it? And it had gotten through Regent into the hands of Corbin Burnson, and he actually called me when he'd finished reading it. So I was, at home with my wife, and the phone rings, and I pick it up, and I'm trying to let my wife know. I'm like, well, hello, Corbin. How are you? So she knows, like, what? You're talking to Corbin? Oh my gosh. Yeah, and it was very exciting because he really got the script. He understood what I was trying to do. Really connected with it. It was very exciting to talk to another. He is not just an actor, but he's also a director, a producer, and a writer. So talking to somebody else who kind of understands and gets it, and just kind of talking through it and how excited he was about it. So clearly I was thrilled. Yeah, it was pretty nice. It was a pretty nice little phone call.
That's awesome. Tell me a little bit more about, because Ruth is a character that is solely based on the Bible. So how do you translate that story, her story, to a secular audience?
Well, it's, wow, that's a good question. My philosophy, I don't have a really good separation of my faith and my regular life. So for me, that's something. All of my stories always have a blend of faith and secular in them, because I just don't see how to separate them out.
That's good.
So even if I'm if I'm doing an adaptation of an H.G. Wells, the God themes at least are going to be there, even if they're not mentioned. And if I'm doing a super book, or something that's explicitly for more of on a religious topic, well, real life is going to be entering into it. So I don't think I ever considered strongly, it's like, well, how do I bring this story into this world? I just said, well, let me tell that story. Let me make it modern. Let me tell it in America. Let me tell it in a culture that is predominantly Christian rather than Jewish. And bring somebody who is not of that culture, which Ruth was not of the Jewish culture. So let me find somebody who's not of that culture, bring her into this culture, and see what the mix how the mix happens, which is where a lot of the comedy actually comes from, is having an outsider looking at this Christian culture and going, really? You guys, this is what you do? Really? Have you guys looked at this? Do you guys know? So having a lot of fun with it in that way.
That's interesting that you said it brilliantly. There is no separation of faith and secularism. It's real life.
Yeah, it's just who we are.
Yeah. So you rewrote the script several times through the production process, is that right?
Absolutely.
So tell us a little more about that. Was that challenging or daunting in any way?
Oh, very, very challenging. In Hollywood, it's actually very rare for a single writer to follow the script the whole way through. So up until it's purchased, it's my script, it's my idea, it's my vision. But once they hire a director, then the movie becomes the director's vision. So the script, the story was mine, but now I have to transfer it over. So fortunately I was working with a very talented director, Rob Kirbyson, who invited me into the process completely. But it was hard, because I had to let go of my vision, and I had to find, well, Rob, what is Rob's vision of the piece? And as a writer, stop writing my vision and start writing his vision. So it's a head shift that's very hard. I'll be honest, it's very hard to do. It's emotionally very challenging. There are certainly a lot of scenes that I loved that had to get thrown out, but there was also
that's hard as a writer.
Oh, it's very hard. It's very hard. But it's the kind of the classic saying as a writer is kill your darlings. If you're too much in love with it, then it becomes too precious. So so it was also very exciting, though, finding new ways to tell the story, new aspects of the story that I hadn't thought of before. Once the actors came in, working with the actors who were all bringing their own energy into it, and just finding who these people are, who these characters are in the mix. It was
so
a good
translating all your visions into the big screen.
Absolutely.
That was a goal.
Oh yeah.
So it was great talking to you, Sean.
Well, thank
you so much
Thank
for
you.
telling us so much about Jessie and Naomi. Well, we have to take a break, but now, before our next guest comes in, there are some behind-the-scenes footage for you guys. Take a look.
What we try to do in our films is be truthful, again, truth to a generation that is watching movies that's a bit younger, that says, hey, you know what, I'm okay with a romantic. I'm Christian, but I like a romantic comedy. You know, I also go see Sleepless in Seattle or whatever else there is, but why can't there be a Christian romantic comedy? A romantic comedy that's got not just Christian worldview, but it says Christian characters in it. Making a film that just sort of appeals to a lot of people, or just make a movie that happens to have Christian characters in it, it's really different from most of our other films. And I think really that's one of the bigger differences, and obviously the ultimate difference is the way we're making it. We're making it here at Regent. And you know, I had this idea of, why don't we make a professional film, for whatever that means, we have the students involved. So, and I mean really and truly involved, not just, hey, give me my coffee, kid. So when a kid graduates from here, they can walk away with a credit on a real movie that's, whether it's a DVD that you find at Walmart or online at iTunes or in the movie theaters, you actually have a credit. You can step out of school with a real film credit, real film experience.
Joining us now in the studio is Lorene Wales, executive producer and also full-time professor at Regent University. Thank you, Dr. Wales, for joining us.
Absolutely.
It's great to have you.
Thank you.
So tell us, how did you get caught up in producing Jessie and Naomi?
Caught up, yes. Well, Regent's wanted to do a feature film for a while now. It's kind of a trend with some universities starting to do that.
Yeah.
So for a couple years, we looked at a couple scripts and it was like, it's not the right script. It's not the right script. And then one day Sean said, you know, I have a script.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, yeah, I'd love to read it. You know, and I read it that night, I think. And I immediately went to our dean and I said, okay, now we can do the feature film. We've got the right script.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what experience have you had before as an executive producer?
Well, I executive produced First Landing, which was also a Regent CBN co-production. That was a little while back, about the First Landing, of course.
Yeah.
First Landing. And that was fun. And that was a kind of the same model of what we did here, having professionals and then students working underneath, you know, that kind of thing. And then I did an AIDS awareness show back in a few years beyond that, out in Africa, in Tanzania.
So were there any scary moments in the pre-production process?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It was very scary. Well, you know, finding the right cast is so key to how the film turns out. And they were working feverishly, and it just so happened that I think it was, what, a day or two?
Just a couple days. Yeah,
before we were actually shooting, that we finally cast our 2 male leads.
Wow.
Because they wanted to cast the females first, because it's really Jessie's story. It's about Jessie and Naomi. So they were cast first, and then you want to get the guys to kind of match them. So it was a little scary, not, you know, I remember.
Just a little scary.
Yeah. I still remember after one of our production meetings, and Chris said, oh, did I tell you we got a chance? I'm like, oh, thank God.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
the 11th hour.
Yeah.
So walk us through a normal day on the set of Jessie and Naomi as an executive producer.
Oh, okay. Well, I have it easy at that point, really. It's really everybody else who's doing all the legwork at that point. You know, because we were working with students, we would have a faculty member on set every day. So I'd get there first thing in the morning, and kind of stand around and observe and watch the students and see how it was all going. And then throughout the day, you know, once they start shooting, I just stood and observed everything. The great part about it is that I could sit there and actually watch the filming as well, which is really key to knowing how your film is going to turn out. So
that's good.
Yeah.
So did you guys work together on set?
Not really.
No. We saw each other.
As faculty, we would.
Yes.
You know, in the faculty role, but as producer writer, pretty much my job was to talk to Rob and focus on the director. Sorry. Yeah. So focusing on the director and what does he need and what does he need from me.
Okay.
Although it was great to have Sean on set. If there were some changes, I remember there was a couple times where I came to you and I said, "Did this line change? You know, what's going on with that?" So, yeah.
That's great. That's great. Well, before we get to more questions, here are a few words from our sponsors. Take a look. Welcome back. We are in the studio with Sean Gaffney, the writer of Jessie and Naomi, and Lorene Wales, the executive producer of the film. So, Lorene or Sean, what would be one funny memory while writing or executive producing the film?
Could tell about the alarm?
Yeah. You tell.
Well, I don't, it wasn't funny for everybody, but it was an interesting moment. We were shooting a scene that takes place in a movie theater.
Okay.
And we decided to use, we were shooting here at Regent. And
Wait, you were filming a movie in a movie theater?
in a movie theater,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
So it's the first kind of date of Jessie and her new love interest.
Okay.
And we're getting set up. We had all the extras in place. The actors were in makeup. Lorena and I were both in the theater. I was sitting in for the actor so they could focus the cameras, and they were fogging the room to kind of give the cool lighting effect.
Yeah.
Well, they were supposed to have turned off the smoke alarm in the theater,
Oh my
and somehow that did not happen.
Oh my
So we
goodness.
triggered the alarm,
Yeah.
and so the alarm for the entire building
Oh,
goes off, and they
no.
had to evacuate the entire building.
Yeah.
It was freezing
Oh,
cold. It was
no.
raining outside.
Oh,
Yeah.
that makes it even worse.
Yeah.
Most of us didn't have our coats with us because we were, inside the theater.
But in defense of our staff, they had actually turned it off. It turned out to be a glitch in the system kind of thing.
Oh,
so,
yeah. Just
but
blame it
the
on-
hardest part was that it wasn't the time lost for all that. It was the time that we had to redo Jessie's hair.
Yeah.
Because she's got long, beautiful blonde hair and
Yeah.
curls a certain way, and it had to all be redone.
Yeah,
And-
makeup
Oh,
and
yeah.
hair
Yeah.
and makeup. You just need to give them so much time
Yeah.
to make them
And
look
as
pretty and beautiful.
soon as the alarm was fixed, we rushed back in the building like, okay, we're ready to shoot. And they're
Yeah.
like, no, they have to start all over with the makeup.
Oh,
Yeah.
So we had to
no.
sit
Wait
there
around,
and
yeah.
wait for the.
So did that take like an entire day to finish?
It,
I know.
it took a big, but it took a
Yeah.
big chunk. It put us a little bit behind.
yeah,
It put us a little
absolutely.
behind. but-
Wow, that's
So that was
Wow.
kind of funny because I was actually telling people don't leave. No, it's not for. They turn in. Don't worry about it. And then they come through and go, get out of the building.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. But you guys both of you are full-time professors at Regent University.
Yes.
So was it difficult to balance work and the film?
Yeah, that's the big honest answer.
You took
yeah.
some time
Very-
saying that.
very much.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, and it's just because, everything's going on during the semester. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to get to 30 or 40 emails a day when
Yeah.
you're on set every day and all that. My
And you
cell
both
phone
are
was just,
busy people.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah,
So-
and trying to balance the being in class, preparing for the class, doing the grading, and in between that,
Yeah.
taking the phone call saying, hey, this scene that we're shooting tomorrow isn't quite working. Can we get a rewrite? Can we get
Yeah.
ideas? Can we get so a constant flow of always jumping from one job to the other.
Yeah.
What was something you personally learned from Jessie and Naomi?
Oh, that's a very good question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Good. I learned that I really miss filmmaking. I really miss production, and as much as I love my job as a professor, there's nothing like being on set. And I learned to really, as an executive producer, to really pay attention to the movie that you're trying to make, and make sure that as you're going through every single day, that that's the film that's getting made. I think that was the biggest lesson for me, because I'd not had that challenge before.
You were reminded of your passion.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Not that I want to do another one real soon, because
Yeah.
we're all exhausted. Not real soon, but yeah, we want to do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sean, tell us, what did you learn from the film?
Wow, so much through the process. I mean, every film is different.
Yeah.
Every combination of personalities is different, so you're constantly shifting around.
Yeah.
But actually, something from the basic story, kind of hit me at a certain moment, because this is the story of a woman from the outside who comes in and is really grafted into this culture, into this family. She's, Ruth is in the lineage of King David, in the lineage of Jesus. So even though she was not of the culture, she's grafted in and made family. And that's one of the things we do in our film. It's really about made family. It's about, it's not necessarily just the blood, but getting together the people around you and creating those family bonds, which is exactly what happens every time you make a movie. You take all these people from all over, people who believe different things, think different things, they all come together and you become bonded for the duration.
That's awesome. You said it perfectly. It's not just the blood. So, Laureen, do you have any advice for upcoming executive producers?
Yeah, and Sean, I love this. The story is everything, absolutely everything. And I learned that over and over again every time I produce that. Man, if you don't have it on the, I mean, it's a cliche. What is it?
Yeah.
If
If it's not on the page, it's not on the stage.
It's not on the stage. Yeah, obviously on the screen. It's just, it is so important. And I think sometimes producers get caught up in the tasks and the legal and the budget and all this other stuff and the schedule, and we forget that as producers, ultimately, I always tell my students, who gets the Academy Award when it's Best Picture wins? It's not the director. Well, the director's important. It's the producer who gets it. You're responsible for the overall thing, and so you've got to pay attention to the story. Absolutely.
So, in the story, the writer becomes an important role. He plays an important role.
Absolutely. I mean, God bless Sean. His original script is not what we shot. It morphed and changed along the way, and I can imagine that's probably pretty painful for a writer. But he was very gracious the whole way
Well, we wish you good luck and with Jessie and Naomi. Thank you so much for spending your time and talking to us.
Absolutely.
Thank you for having us.
This was great.
Yes, thank you.
So, Jessie and Naomi is scheduled for a 2016 release. Be sure to check it out. We hope you enjoyed the show today. I'm Sharon Dinakaran, and this has been What's Up. See you next time.